Here we are, here now. Breaking news, Canada cracks open the NATO coalitions. The egg has fallen off the wall and it's broken in too many pieces for the guards to put it ever back together again.
They sure can. Not now. It's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Incredible. And in Canada, which never makes the news, but Canada has been like a cesspool of Nazi haven, for war criminals who escaped, justice under the Red Army and fled to Canada, and Canada gave them haven, even while, the Jewish refugees were not welcome here. Jewish refugees were not welcome here before the Holocaust, not during the Holocaust, and not after the Holocaust even. It was only that my parents had a sister who had lived here previous to the war that sponsored my father, that my family, my parents were able to come in here with my mother pregnant with me, conceived in a Jewish refugee camp. We just made it into Canada barely. But, 2,000 Ukrainian neo-Nazis, actual Nazis, who were part of the Nazi army under German state command in the German SS Waffen Galiciana contingent brigade or whatever it is, there they are. He's right there, a war criminal being fisted, in the House of Commons under the Liberal government.
See, to me, I am very pleased with the outcome of this because the alliance between Zelensky or the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian fascists, worldwide Ukrainian Nazis, and the West has not been allowed to be discussed in the Western press since the special military operation began. There's been active censorship of this story since this operation began. You're not allowed. It is not allowed to have this story discussed, even by so-called critics such as Scott Ritter, who I have some concerns about. No one wants to discuss this. Only the Russians and those who ally with the people in eastern Donbass, in the eastern parts of Ukraine, now part of Russia, have raised the issue of the alliance historically and currently between the West, Azov Battalion, the Maidan coup, Newland, Mr. Obama, and now Mr. Biden, the British, the French, and the Germans. All these supporters who are the fuelers of the war are in direct alliance with fascists. Before the special military operation began, you could make this, oh yeah, there's some Nazis. But look at now, Azov Battalion goes to Israel and gets feted in Israel by the Likud party. No, I'm not sure it's about Likud or by Labor, but they found ground in Israel. This is why. Okay, this is a little bit off topic. This is why I don't support free speech. In the sense of, you can say what you want, do what you want. No, I think Germany is correct. I think you can ban some things, but it depends on who's in power, what's banned. So that's the whole end of in my argument. I know there's a flaw in my argument, but these guys and ladies can do what they want, like the transsexual American spokesman who joined the Ukrainian military and threatened to kill all the Russians last week. Sarah, who was suspended from her job for just threatening to kill Russians. That's okay. Lindsey Graham can say it's the best thing we ever did. They used our money to kill Russians. That's not cool.
Yeah,
just because they're Russian.
not just Russian journalists, but pro-Russian journalists. She was threatening. Yeah, I saw that video. Incredible.
Yeah,
and she tried to deny it. But and then admitted afterwards. In the various other videos that she was working with the Nazis. In the Ukrainian military, spokesperson for the troops there. Yeah. Incredible. So this story breaks it all open. Like that was just like on the internet. That got through. But now the internet, like media, like us, have been able to surpass the regular commercial media and cause a scandal in Canada that would have been ignored otherwise, by the regular commercial media, right?
Yes, right.
Except that, this is such, like a gaffe, an expose, of what the Liberal Party is and what liberalism is actually. But it was done, by the Conservative Party of Canada as well. They jumped on this, like as a way to, bash, the Liberal Party. And they've done it, like I'd like to see the polls, after this, because all the illusions about the liberalism here in Canada have just been shattered. It's incredible. And this has been exposed, for a long time, by the Coat website, in Canada, which, listed all the various nationalities from Eastern Europe, that found refuge in Canada, and what, large percentage of them, were Nazis or pro-Nazi, sympathizers or collaborators or informers, who caused the deaths of others, all of whom, were too afraid to stay, there because they knew that they were guilty of killing, murder. So, they found refuge in Canada. Incredible. And then they get subsidized, like every year, for cultural activities, to publish a newsletter or something like that. They get, public funds, to sustain themselves, to build up a reservoir of Nazism. Wow. And then it was, like so overt too, like it wasn't as if, like the members of the parliament, didn't know what was happening, because they were told by the Speaker of the House that this guy, was a volunteer soldier, fighting against Russia. Now, who else was fighting against Russia and Ukraine? Not Ukraine. It wasn't a country, like it was occupied by the Nazi regime, like there wasn't a Ukraine. There wasn't an independent Ukrainian military. He was a member of the German Nazi army. They were a division within that army, of the SS. Incredible. They just, were all grouped together, in the same brigade, because they were Ukrainian, because they spoke Ukrainian, like by necessity. But they were part of the German army. Like incredible. They were told that. And they still, even the New Democratic Party, the Social Democratic Party, stood up and applauded twice.
They all should be forced to resign and have new elections.
Yeah, this government is gone. Yeah, it has
the government should, because especially of the parliamentary system that exists in Canada under capitalist bourgeois democracy, the Canadian people need to make the demand. Everybody who was in there, who stood up and applauded, voted for that shit, need to step down.
Yeah.
New elections. That's the only way for Canada to I'm not saying I want Canada to redeem itself. No, it's a capitalist government who stole native land, involved in imperialist alliances around the world. Nothing won't do to as a part of the imperialist core. What I'm saying is sometimes there are demands you can make. Let me give you an example. In some parts of the United States right now, gasoline is $6 a gallon, almost $7 a gallon, $8 a gallon. A person told me recently, who's going to demand the politicians do something? All of a sudden, the politician did something, and the price is going down. Not because they're good people, no, but the demand was made on them. So I'm just giving an example. Okay? Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that, to me, in Canada right now, is a key opportunity, especially for the NDP, especially for them. They need to be those people who are in part, who voted for that, need to be forced to step down and have new elections, or they need to be replaced by somebody. There needs to be some accountability. You are here. I'm gonna go off again. I'm sorry. The same thing exists in the United States. When it comes to the Confederacy and slavery and the post-Confederate government, the post-Confederate governments, the Black Codes governments, there is an acceptance oh, well, this is the way it was. Now things are better. No, no acceptance. Those cats who voted, who approved this coming to the entire government should fall. The entire Canadian government should come down. This is a classic. This is a classic case for a general strike, some kind of action by a broad mass of Canadians to bring down the government, because you ally with somebody who's with a historically verified crime against humanity. And people accept
criminal. Yeah.
People accept the Holocaust as a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
People don't accept slavery. Slavery is not accepted as a crime against humanity. It isn't.
Yeah.
It is not. But the Holocaust is. So since it is, take advantage of it.
This is, like slavery. My aunt, she was a slave for the German war munitions factory in Germany.
What I'm saying is that the Holocaust is accepted as a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
It is.
Poland is even calling for the extradition, right? Poland is calling for his extradition, to be put on trial for war crimes against Polish people,
not against
Jewish people.
I'm saying the Canadian government now the people of Canada have to demand not just an apology, but the politicians who took these stands have to be removed.
Yeah, but they haven't even apologized. Steve, they haven't even apologized. The interviews, like chasing after them, on the corridor, they don't even want to apologize. And they moved a motion in the House of Commons to strike it from the historic record. This has never been done before. It's not possible. Everything that goes into the, like it's a videotape, in the House of Commons or into the Gazette, it stays there. You can't remove it.
So that means then there must now be an international movement against Canada around the world to make this happen.
Boycott Canada. Really?
Yeah. I mean, if Canada cannot apologize, if Canada cannot remove the members of the parliament because they endorsed a crime against humanity, then the international community of civil society and activists who know better must demand that the government be dismissed. Period.
Yeah. Yes, it's a danger here in Canada as well. This is another aspect of it. There's an additional aspect that I want to refer to later on. But the Nazi, war criminals who fled to Canada, were not just from Ukraine; they were from all of the East European countries. Okay, so there's a sort of a certain milieu there, especially in Western Canada, that has cultivated, these communities in isolation, and they've, raised, new generations, and the movement that they have, reformed, amongst themselves, comprises about 30,000, soldiers, basically, people are willing to be soldiers, very dangerous, like a milieu here in Canada, and 30,000 in Canada is like lots. So, and the other thing that I wanted to mention, is that this is a scandal on a scandal, because the Liberal Party are the big Zionists of Canadian politics. And here we have the Zionists, like pro-Zionists, buddy with the Nazis. So the Jewish Zionists, they can't take it, like it blew their minds. And all of the, their, civil rights organizations, were forced, to come out in condemnation of the Liberal government. Like they just lost, like a big pillar of support, in Canada. I hope it doesn't go to the Conservative Party. It could go to the NDP with the leader being a Sikh. That would be very interesting. Probably Jewish community will split on this, but this is, like never before has this happened. There's always, like a very solid, alliance between the Liberal Party and the Jewish, bourgeois institutions, which I have cracked open now because I won the judge's decision to go back to the Jewish Community Center. I haven't done so yet, though.
Very good. Very good. That's excellent. That's excellent. So let's explain to everybody what can you do a timeline of what exactly happened here so everybody is clear. So there's no mistake. If let's say they've missed the news, let's say if they've been busy, They don't watch international news. They've had their head in the sand. They've been on a trip outside the newspaper and internet zones.
Context.
You know,
Okay.
yeah.
Context is this. Okay. The Liberal government of Canada is supporting NATO and supporting NORAD with North American Air Defense Alliance with the United States. You know, like Canada's like the backyard of the U.S. You know, so
right.
They come out. You know, Canada's like just allocated $500 million additional aid to Ukraine military to buy arms from Canada, probably, like American military subsidies in Canada, manufacturing in Canada. So Canada wants a piece of the pie. So Canadian government is giving a subsidy for Ukraine to buy, armed goods manufactured in Canada, thus, doing a stimulation, subsidizing the local private corporations that are American subsidies. So, it's a triangle. So, in order to sort of, to put a kosher stamp on it, the Liberal government seems, like have arranged, a meeting and a presentation of this Ukrainian nationalist, supposedly, to the House of Commons, in order to, beef up support, for this $500 million, without criticisms, from the opposition, because they didn't want to be criticized, for wasting public funds. When, the hospitals, we have 8 million people in Canada waiting, for surgical operations, to correct something like me, to get my knees fixed. So, $500 million, is going to Ukraine, for what? So they put up this, like the Speaker of the House gets up, barely coherent, and announces this Ukrainian nationalist who fought against the Russians and is now supporting the current, soldiers who are fighting against the Russians as well. And he was fighting against the Russians in the Second World War. Okay, so who was fighting against the Russians in the Second World War? I mean, it was the Nazi, military of Germany that had invaded Russia, I believe. Yes, and everyone agrees that it's that. And they invaded, Ukraine as well. And Ukraine, was an occupied territory. It didn't exist anymore. There was no Ukrainian military. In fact, there was no Ukrainian. There was a military resistance from Ukraine, but part of the Russian army. There were 7 million Ukrainians who volunteered for the Russian Red Army to fight against the Nazi invasion of the Ukraine. But there was 125,000 Ukrainians who volunteered for the German army and formed a brigade in the German military SS Waffen division, and the Ukrainian-speaking division was called the Galicianen. And what did they do? They went even more. They were even more extreme than Nazis. They went around hunting Jewish people and Roma people, eliminated like 1.5 million Jewish Ukrainians who don't exist anymore except for Zelensky, and Roma people, right now they're being, hunted down. Roma people are, there's no news about this, but they're being hunted down right now, and in Hungary as well, and this I hear directly from my Hungarian Roma friends. So this guy, stands up in the public gallery and is feted, by the Speaker of the House, and everybody stands up and gives him an ovation, as if, like he's a great hero, like this Nazi is a hero, for having fought Russia during the Second World War. And if he had won, then, we would all be under a fascist regime, international fascist regime. And it seems as if, like there was and still is, sympathy to that effect. So NATO is, like rehabilitating fascism, Nazism, rehabilitation of Nazism. Incredible. So even though, like 45,000 Canadians died, fighting against the Nazis, and Russia was an ally of Canada, in order to save, its democracy. And this democracy is, welcoming, the Nazis into the House. So then, like the Speaker goes on, says something else, and then they give him another ovation, and they all get up. And then this is all recorded on, the House, video and audio. So, after the scandal broke in, the internet, basically, then the Liberal Party moved a motion to eliminate and censor out the video of their you know, two standing ovations for the Nazi, because they had nothing to say. You know, they had no answer, you know, for what they had done. So they actually moved a motion to have it, you know, eliminated, you know, from the Gazette, you know, from the recording, from the historical record, even though, you know, it's all over the internet. You know, it cannot be, you know, suppressed at all. In fact, the Gray Zone, you know, did a beautiful job of bringing together all of the documentary video on the question. You know, nice job there, guys. Yeah. So now what happens? Well, Poland is going to, you know, extradite the jerk, you know, to Poland to stand trial for war crimes. You know, 98 years old. Yeah, get him while the heart's still pumping.
Yeah. The entire affair is so despicable. The entire affair, from beginning to end, is deplorable. The entire affair and all of its components is absolutely disgusting.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's no socially redeeming value from this entire affair. The attempted censorship of historical record. Right there, you see how far they will go to cover up their crimes.
Yeah.
Let's change what we know didn't happen. Let's change it to some other fairy tale. So 100 years from now, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
The fact that, now correct me if I'm wrong, the fact that the Canadian press, correct me if I'm wrong, did not break this story. It came from the internet, broke the story. It simply shows, I hate to say that, the Canadian Parliament, like all progressive capitalist governments, is a nest of snakes.
Yeah.
A nest of snakes and rats and vampires and human, I'm sorry, predators and human scum. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's just the story you just told. Because they're fighting Russia, they're good. Well, that just shows you Russophobia is no good, because some a country's political stance can vary from situation, even though they are capped. I mean, you have a whole different form of government, of society, than you had during World War II. Now Russia. I mean, it's so ahistoric. It's ahistorical. It shows no understanding of history. We really know who to hate. We want to hate somebody. That's all we have to do is just hate you. That this should show the youth. It should show scholars. It should show people of conscience. You can't just go. You can't just be motivated solely on hate. Because right now, I mean, they're against Russia. They're our friends. And it shows to me the historical alliance between the capitalist class, the capitalist governments, and the Nazis. This has been an alliance for no less than 60 years.
Wow.
An 80-year alliance after World War II.
Yeah.
It's about a 78-year alliance has finally been exposed it's been exposed at different times, but now it's been exposed even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine what it's going to do to Israel's alliance with Ukraine, you know, Netanyahu's, you know, like endorsement of Zelensky and all this, you know, like, oh, no, you know, that's going to melt away. And then, you know, like what's going to, you know, there's a reflection to happen, you know, in the United States. There's a second wave, you know, of scandals to come, you know, in the United States. Yeah, you know, there was the paperclip campaign, you know, to bring in, Nazi intelligence officers who knew, who had a network, you know, an anti-communist network that already established in Eastern Europe, that they converted into CIA agents. This is how the CIA was formed. Well, the second half of the CIA, besides information gathering, you know, when they started to become, you know, like a covert action, you know, organization, this is how they did it, you know, with the Nazis. And then, you know, the space race, you know, like was all built upon, you know, the soldiers, you know, of the German engineers, you know, who were working for the Nazis.
Yep.
And you know, besides, you know, building, you know, like NASA ships, they're also building, you know, like rockets, you know, to carry nuclear bombs. Same technology.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. So all I can hope, Abraham, is that this conversation can spur our viewers to take peaceful, democratic, anti-imperialist, anti-Nazi, anti-Canadian government action around the world. Mm-hmm. The Canadian government should be on the hot seat wherever it shows its ugly head. Yeah. Wherever the flag flies over an embassy, it should place we can demonstrate and denounce them for being collaborators with Nazis. A historically verifiable crime against humanity.
Yeah, unapologetic, you know, like allies of the Nazis. Yeah,
unapologetic, and to cover up your collaboration, you want to censor your own documents, so history will not be accurate.
Yeah. Oh, the foreign minister herself is a granddaughter of a Nazi propagandist, you know, from the Ukraine during the Second World War. You know, like, and she's still there. She's still there. And she was the one, you know, nodding yes in agreement, you know, with the motion to censure, you know, the public record of the House of Commons. Oh, wow.
This should be taught in Canadian schools right now.
This is historic
what
moment,
is happening. I mean, this moment in social studies, Canadian history, Canadian political science, this is a moment to really look at, I'm not pointing out anybody's government over anybody else's government, but right now, the Canadian nation is on the microscope.
Yeah.
What will Canada do? Because this is an attempt to ally with a movement that is verified as a crime against humanity. There's nobody can argue that has any moral compass.
It makes me think of the preceding scandal in Canada, you know, like the boarding schools, you know, for Indigenous, you know, First Nations children, you know, and they ripped, you know, the next generation, the future away from all of the nations by force. And then those children who refused to speak, you know, other than their own native language, you know, were basically killed. And they're buried, you know, in the backyard, you know, the places, you know, where they're trying, you know, to find, you know, the thousands, you know, of children's bodies that are buried, you know, at the church grounds, you know, that were moralizing, you know, and berating, you know, them for being savages, and when they were themselves, you know, were so what's the word? They were so wow. Canada is like. Is all this, you know, polite. It does it all very politely.
Very polite. Canadian style. Canadian style is polite. I mean, and that is a compliment to the country.
Yeah.
No, it is. I'd rather be known as a polite country than a rude country. I would like to be known as courteous, as kind, as I would. If I'd rather have the country known as courteous, kind, thoughtful people, and Canadians have earned that label.
Yeah,
I think every Canadian should wear it with pride. Myself, America is known as nasty, corrupt, sexist, racist. There was a survey done recently of what people didn't like about the United States. It came down to two things. You know what they were? Violence and racism.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm saying Canadians busy. I mean, it's very polite. However, what you did on that day was wrong.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Canadians are going to stand for this. They're not going to accept this. You know, just as they didn't accept the cruise missile testing in Western Canada when I did a protest on Parliament Hill, and you know, protest against the government, against the first Trudeau government, you know, got 80% support in the population, but the Conservative government that followed, you know, nonetheless, you know, we got put into prison there. I've done a lot of prison time there, Steve, but it's been worth it.
Okay, brother.
We will always win. Very good.
We will. Okay, brother.
Okay, good. See you next week.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.